Hello, welcome, please come in. It's time for our makeup work to continue in this, Final Fantasy IV, where we will be adding it to the games completed without doing any shopping. As a reminder, or first-time information for those who may not have seen that series, a shop is any place you exchange gil or goods for an item. And it has genuinely been a very long time since I played FF4, so long I didn't even own the Pixel Remaster before I recorded this, so my memory on most things is going to be pretty sparse. But we gain control in Baron Castle, loot a few treasure chests, and then take a nice nap. In the morning, it will be time to deliver an innocuous-looking ring to an innocuous-looking village, with Kane, our innocuous-looking friend. But first, there are free items in town that I very much want to grab. Not being able to buy items means I will be limited to whatever random treasure I find lying around, which is honestly more than I expected. And, also as a reminder, an inn is not a shop. You rent a room, you don't buy it. And it's time for the Mist Cavern. This place too has some mediocre treasures, and the first boss, the Mist Dragon, which is very easy. Don't attack when the dragon turns misty, and you're fine. Its basic attacks deal very little damage, and I never even come close to needing to heal. Then it's into the Summoner Village, where the innocuous-looking ring is actually a war crime. Titan shows up, and Kane is gone, and Rydia will be joining the party, who, for now at least, is a white mage. The game does usually have you with a white mage in the party at most points, which is very nice. Rosa, Cecil's love interest, is sick, and we need to help her. But first, it's time to get some levels. Oh right, Rydia starts at level 1. Let's just try that again. Good thing Cecil has darkness to hit all enemies. Okay, I've gained some levels, so Rydia has added to her stock of white and black magic, just in time to add Tella to the party, who is very old and has forgotten most of his spells, which is why his spell selection is so very weird. He is also locked at 90 MP, which is pretty good for right now, but will quickly become bad. The monsters in this cave are all very easy thanks to having 2 black mages and a white mage because I really struggle against undead. Cecil does get a new sword, which I love, and some new armor. Enjoy the new armor while it lasts because we won't be getting much of it going forward. Our next boss is Octomammoth, a very easy boss that can be beaten by just spamming Thunder with Rydia and Tella and attacking with Cecil. I did kinda forget how easy FF4 can be. Back on the world map, and this castle gets destroyed, and our very useful sage gets replaced by the functionally worthless spoony bard, Edward. Hooray! At least I get a hovercraft out of it, and free healing, which is neat. Oh, and useful armor and some healing items. Okay, that's probably worth the trade. Anyway, Rosa is still sick, so it's time for the Antlion Cave. The random encounters here aren't too bad, but they are made worse by Edward being, well, worthless. Seriously, he's just awful in this game. Bards have always been of iffy value in Final Fantasy, but they really amped that up in FF4. And it's next boss time. Edward did get a better harp at some point. Wow, look at that amount of damage. Anyway, gonna just spam Blizzard and basic attacks. Why does the Antlion deal so little damage? Seriously, FF4 may just be too easy for this challenge to be that interesting. Anyway, back to Kaipo to cure Rosa. Huzzah, that brings our white mage count up to 2. And Rosa is a better white mage than Rydia is, so it's a definite improvement. And with our improved party, it's time to take the hovercraft over further to access Mount Hobbs, where some ice gets melted. Some random items acquired, and it's time to meet the next party member, Young. Just in time for a boss fight. Young is fine, but not that exciting. Still better than Edward. Once the Mom Bomb explodes, Cecil can deal big damage with darkness while Rosa and Rydia keep the party healed up. Edward is also there. And it's over to Fabul, which sells better armor for Cecil and elemental claws for Young, which I, of course, must do without, which is a real bummer. That armor would have been nice. And now it's time for a siege. Rosa and Rydia leave the party, so Young and Cecil must fight a bunch of foes alone. Also, Edward is there. Good thing both Cecil and Young have multi-target attacks with darkness and kick. But then things go very narratively bad, with Rosa being kidnapped and the crystal being taken, so we're doing great. The king gives Cecil his best sword, and it's time to sail off back to Baron, which is interrupted by everyone dying. And Cecil conveniently wakes up in Basidia, needing to prove his worth by becoming a hero, and he will be assisted in this task by 2 small children who replace Rydia and Rosa as my white and black mage. And that starts with the long walk over to Mount Ordeals. It is nice that Deathbringer deals instant death, for the one fight I got into where that was helpful, because now it's onto the mountain itself where my evil sword is going to deal no damage to the many undead here. Good thing Palom and Porim are genuinely quite good characters with good support and offensive spells. Honestly, my biggest concern right now might just be MP, at least until these 2 small children get some levels. Good news is Tella rejoins the party, and he has Osmos, which can be useful in some situations. Okay, next boss time against Scarmiglione, I think is how you might pronounce that. The first fight is pretty easy, with Palom using Fire 2 to devastate the undead in this fight, then more fire to destroy the main boss. Cecil can even deal adequate damage with his sword. But then it's time for the actual boss fight against his undead form. Because he's undead, Kira can deal damage, which is good. Less good is the slow the boss inflicts that I don't really have a way to deal with. And the poison is honestly more annoying than threatening. Fire 2 is still dealing really good damage. Into the trial proper, and Cecil is now a paladin, and I can complete this trial by doing nothing. Classic nepotism. And Cecil gets his new weapon, and I kind of just have to equip whatever armor I happen to have on me, which may be a bit out of date. Not ideal. Oh right, Tella has all of his spell access back, so now I need to rearrange all the magic to make it not a nightmare to find. And then get annoyed and give up. It's fine, and I can now take the Devil's Road from Mysidia back to Baron. Wait, why does this exist? Anyway, in the tavern, Young has been mind-controlled or something to serve Baron, so it is time to cure his amnesia by committing considerable violence. Tella may not have a lot of MP, but level 3 spells do deal a lot of damage. Young is back in the party, so it's time to sneak back into Baron Castle. I still don't have any good armor for anyone, which isn't great. At least all the enemies in the next dungeon are weak to lightning. And it's castle time, and time for the next boss fight, against Bagan. Bagan has 2 arms that hit fairly hard and can cast Reflect to counter my magic attacks, which is really bad, actually. He can also paralyze characters, which is even worse. Porum and Tella have to devote the entire fight to healing. Palom can't do anything with the Reflect status up. Reflect does expire, but Bagan will always recast it. Okay, that fight took a really long time. I had no memory of that fight being challenging at all, but that was a bit trickier than most. Hopefully, that won't continue, because it's time for the second fiend, Cagnazzo. Cecil and Young focus on basic attacks. Once Cagnazzo raises his water wall, Palom casts Thunder to break through, and Tella unleashes Blizzaga, because that is his weakness for some reason. This fight is very quick, because Blizzaga deals way too much damage for this point in the game. But next up, it's time to say goodbye to Palom and Porum, who have turned themselves into statues. Don't worry, they will get better. And it's time for this game's resident Cid to join the party and bequeath to us an airship. Cid is, frankly, not very good in this game, but he is a character in this party. And with airship in tow, first destination is the Summoner Village, which has somehow already been rebuilt. This lets me steal some armor. Oh good, more armor. I desperately need armor. And it's over to Troya, which has more hidden items, which are decent consumables. And Edward is recovering in the castle because he is a character in this game. Oh, that's a lot of treasures at least, which is good because next destination is the Metal Cave, which could be a problem. I can't equip metal equipment here, or I won't be able to take actions. Normally I can buy some okay equipment, but that's not an option, obviously. So my combat capabilities against the random encounters here are going to be not great. Good thing Tella still has very strong, if expensive, magic, because the rest of the party is not contributing as much as I'd like. There are also 2 tent locations in this dungeon, and while I don't have infinite tents, I do have a decent supply. In the fight with the Dark Elf, the first encounter ends in defeat, but don't worry, Edward is a character in this game, and now I can use metal equipment. And the Dark Elf is way more manageable with actual weapons, especially because his stats are reduced. Why do I still have Cecil in the back row? That's very silly. It also doesn't help that Tella has limited MP, and I don't have infinite healing items. At least the Dark Dragon can be slowed, that helps a bit. But wow, the Dark Dragon is dealing a lot of damage. Dark Breath is not my favorite thing. I think I kind of just have to hope I don't need these healing items later, because I really just need to use every high potion I can just to survive. And there we go! Okay, that was closer than I'd like, but it did work. Completing that unlocks the treasure vault in Troya. Wow, that bow would have been useful before the dungeon, but not really now. And with Crystal in hand, it's time for the Tower of Zot, because we still need to rescue our dedicated white mage, Rosa. Ooh, Fire Sword, nice. Wow, I wish Tella had more MP. Osmos helps, but not as much as I'd like. This dungeon does just have better weapons for the whole party, huh? Really wish it had any kind of better armor. That would be amazing. Just something. But sadly no better armor, and its next boss fight against the Magus Sisters. These 3 use a Reflect Element attack strategy that is fine. Most of my party don't use spells anyway, and while Tella could deal decent damage in theory, I really need him to use his stupidly small MP pool to heal instead. Cid does at least have the Gaia Hammer now, which lets him spam Quake. That's kinda nice. Did Tella just reflect Osmos off Cid to drain MP from the boss? Wow, confused Tella has better strategies than me. That's embarrassing. Anyway, hi Golbez, how do you feel about Meteor? Not great, good to know. I mean, he doesn't die, obviously, but Tella sure does. Kane is no longer being mind-controlled, so he joins the party, and we rescue Rosa, who has white magic and an actual MP pool. Just in time to face our next boss, Barbaricia. She will wrap herself in wind, forcing Kane to jump to break her out of it. Barbaricia also has Tornado to reduce a target to single-digit HP, and a slow petrification ability. Good thing I have a dedicated healer, and Cecil can cast Asuna. Most of his white magic is completely worthless, but Asuna is actually great to have. This fight isn't too difficult, really just jump to break the tornado defense, attack with Young and Sid, while Rosa and Cecil handle healing and status curing. And because they both have considerably more MP than Tella did, they maintain MP much longer, winning the fight. And now I can properly loot the rest of Castle Baron, which means a lot more consumables in my stock. Okay, full party assembled-ish, time to blow a hole into the underworld, because that's right, FF4 has an entire subterranean world to explore. And that starts in the Dwarven castle. Sid leaves the party to go fix up our busted airship, and it's time for the creepiest boss in the game, a bunch of dolls. Kalka and Brina. The first half of the fight is pretty easy, mostly just kill some dolls to reduce damage and survive until they fuse into Kalko Brenna. Wait, why is Brenna spelled differently? Anyway, this boss loves to use status effects to turn my physical attacks against me, but Rosa can keep the party healed up while everyone else punches, and the fight ends easily enough. Then Golbez returns to be a nuisance. Ideally, Kane would be in the air when Golbez starts killing everyone, but that doesn't end up working out. Oh well, it's not too difficult to recover from this, so I need to get my party back in fighting shape while Rydia deals a lot of damage, actually. Seriously, why is she dealing that much damage? Rydia is back in the party permanently and comes conveniently equipped with up-to-date armor, which is really nice. Anyway, Golbez now has all the crystals, I think, so we need to loot the Dwarven castle for all the treasures I can, which is not a ton, but it'll have to do. I do find a few armor pieces, but wow, is my whole party under-geared. Anyway, time to run through the underground cave to another section of the underworld, and it's over to the Tower of Babil. And now that I have Rydia here, things are way easier. She has strong black magic, stronger summons, and actual MP. It's incredible. Summons do have pretty lengthy charge times, though. Ooh, Osmos. We love draining MP. That should be very useful. The Tower of Babil continues the tradition of trapped treasure chests with good weapons and basically no better armor to keep my party from dying. I am kind of short on tents and cottages. Hopefully these can keep me going. Otherwise I don't actually know what can drop those. Oh well, that's a later problem. Next actual problem is the next boss against this Doctor and Barnabas. Phase 1 is nothing, with a few attacks ending the fight. Barnabas Z is likewise a nothing fight, but then it's time for the proper boss fight against Dr. Lugay himself. Protect can help with defense, but this boss just loves status effects. Poison isn't actually that dangerous, but coupled with sleep, it can be a problem. Good thing Rydia's damage is so stupidly high. And with the good doctor dead, it's time for Young to sacrifice himself to disable the tower's cannons. Somehow. And Young dying can only mean it's almost time to add a different character to the party. And that is Sid, who has fixed our airship. Except nope, he's also going to sacrifice himself to seal the giant hole in the underworld. A quick trip back to the Baron, and we can now cart the hovercraft around with the airship and access Eblin Cave. The dungeon has a lot of consumables, which is nice, and introduces the next permanent party member, Edge, who gets wrecked by Rubicante, our fourth and final fiend, who we will deal with later. In addition to being a ninja, Edge gives us access to the Steal command for the first time. Steal is awful in this game and basically never works, and when it does, it can only steal items that would have dropped anyway. So we will not be using it. Anyway, Edge has snuck us into the Tower of Babil again, and wow, I am just getting wrecked by these random encounters. It's almost like having terrible defensive equipment might be a problem, actually. But I can't leave, so I'm just going to have to make this work. Somehow. At the end, we encounter Edge's parents, which is a narrative fight rather than an actual boss fight, then an actual boss fight against Rubicante, who does not mess around. The good news is he is very weak to ice when his cloak is open, and Rydia and Edge can both deal really big damage. I am struggling a bit to keep Rosa alive, though, because Rubicante's Inferno deals enough damage to one-shot anyone in the party, and he does this a lot. And while fire is less dangerous, it still deals damage to the entire party. This fight also takes a decent chunk of time because Rubicante has a lot of health. But eventually he goes down, and it's time to explore even more of the Tower of Babil. And we escape via stolen airship, and oh look, Sid isn't dead, just napping. And apparently the party has no feelings around this until I chat with the king. Then they have feelings about it, and now our new airship can fly over lava. which means a lot of optional content just became available. Tomra has items to loot, the smithy has more items to loot, and the Cave of Summons, which has more items and a better katana. Still no better armor, but I'm beginning to think that just isn't a thing I'm getting. And that lack of durability is becoming more and more a problem. Well, my defenses are bad, but let's see how these fights against the optional summons go. Surely Ashura won't absolutely wreck me. Okay, so they can one-shot Edge through Protect, that's not great. And when they get off a Kiraga, it heals more than the damage I have dealt. Reflect might help mitigate that healing, but I just don't have the survivability for this. Okay, this is gonna be a later problem. Next up, I can explore the Sylph Cave. Oh geez, the damage here is even worse than the Cave of Summons. Just gonna have to be very careful through here, it turns out. At least Cecil and Rosa both have a Suna, that helps a bit. Especially against the stupid Toad Witch over here. There are a lot of nice treasures here, at least. Good thing the Pixel Remaster has quick saves and auto saves, because this cave takes a few visits and a handful of reloads. But eventually I get all the items I want. Okay, time for the actual next dungeon, the Sealed Cave. The big gimmick of this dungeon is every door is a trap. These trapdoors will lock onto one party member and then kill them. The instant death can be reflected back, however, if you cast Reflect on the right character at least. So the real challenge of this dungeon is paying attention, a thing I mostly do okay at, but only mostly. And then at the end is the boss, the Demon Wall, and the gimmick here is I need to kill the wall as quickly as possible or I die. So it's time to unleash my most damaging attacks, Haste Berserk on Cecil, Jump with Kain, and Big Spells with Rydia. This is a DPS race, and I do win. Hooray! Back at the cave entrance, Kain turns evil again, to the shock of absolutely no one. Sid once more improves the airship, this time with a drill to dig our way back to the surface, which we wouldn't really have had to do if he hadn't closed the path to the surface in the first place. But whatever. My next destination is the moon, but first I have some errands to run. Quick run through the Sylph Cave to chat with Young, who has been here the whole time, then to Fabul to get a frying pan from his wife, then all the way back to Sylph Cave to whack him over the head with it. This gets me the Sylph Summon, which isn't particularly good. Then to pick up my other airship and take the hovercraft over to this island to chat with this child, I think? To get adamantite in exchange for a rat tail I picked up somewhere. I can take this to the smithy in the underworld to start him working on the Excalibur. I'll pick that up shortly. Did I ever loot Eblin Castle? Better do that now. Then over to Mysidia, where we all pray, and then the lunar whale emerges from beneath the sea. But I can immediately hop back over to the forge again to pick up the Excalibur. Because no, you don't actually need to go to the moon first. And since I've done all this leveling and gear acquisition, I might as well try the Ashura fight again. If nothing else, my new sword and more level should help. And while I did just say Sylph isn't very good, it can at least help a bit with healing. Cecil with Haste and Berserk is also dealing 3,000 to 4,000 per hit, which is a lot. And between all those upgrades, Ashura goes down. Okay, that was easier than expected. Let's see if I can also beat Leviathan. This fight does tend to be easier, mostly because it's just simpler. Leviathan is weak to lightning damage and takes about 8,000 to 9,000 damage per Thundaga. Cecil and Edge can't deal that much damage, but they do contribute a bit. And there we go, Leviathan down. And with that, it's time to head to the moon. And it's a long walk through multiple caves to reach the Lunar Palace and recruit our final party member, Professional Moon Weirdo, Usoya. Now, rather than immediately going back to Earth, it's time for a final side quest, and that is into Bahamut's cave. This cave has some new equipment, finally, and some very dangerous fights against behemoths. Seriously, every behemoth fight is really resource intensive, mostly because I need Blink to stop physical attacks, and that's a decent chunk of MP with how many times I need to cast it. But at the end of the cave, I reach Bahamut, and this fight is super easy. Mostly because Bahamut's only attack is Mega Flare, which can be reflected. So once everyone in the party has Reflect, Bahamut will just deal max damage to himself over and over again until he dies. This does not take very long. Final side quest completed, it's time to fly back to Earth for the Giant of Babil section, where all the characters who tried and failed to die in this story show up to help. Other than Tella. He is actually dead. Nobody else is, though. The dungeon itself is uneventful, and it's time for the next boss fight. All 4 fiends in a row. To start, I haste and berserk Cecil. All I want him to do is attack anyway. Okay, and Fire Aga dealt max damage. Nice. Next up is Cognazo. No water barrier nonsense this time. Cognazo is just weak to lightning damage, and Rydia can deliver that very quickly and effectively. Kain is busy being evil for the 47th time, so can't help against the next fiend. Which is fine, Cecil is dealing 7,000 damage per hit by himself. And then we have the final fiend, Rubicante, who is still comically weak to ice attacks. And that was the 4 fiends. Wild that this fight is always so easy to clear. Riddy and Cecil combined just deal so much damage. Okay, next fight against something that is a boss in this video game. And first on the to-do list is to destroy the defense node. This heals the boss for 3000 HP per turn, and that is a problem. It is more a problem though when I mess up and break both spheres, because then the boss starts one-shotting the party. Fortunately, that is a temporary problem, and once the little spheres respawn, I can start doing my actual strategy. Cecil and Edge attack as normal. Rydia summons Sylph because the CPU has Reflect and all other summons hit multiple targets. It's not a lot of damage, but it is damage. Meanwhile, Fusoya and Rosa sit around waiting to heal as needed, which is honestly not often. Okay, that is the CPU dead. Fusoya leaves the party, Kane rejoins, hooray, and it's time for the final sequence because it's endgame, baby! And that means it is back to the Lunar Palace, and down into the Lunar Subterrane. And the monsters here, at least the chess monsters, are actually pretty strong, though they do often self-destruct. I really do appreciate how easy it is to run from enemies in this game though. Seriously, why even have random encounters if you can run from them this easily? The Lunar Subterrane also houses optional bosses guarding the game's best weapons, and first up is the White Dragon, which can be almost fully neutralized by casting Float and having Curaga ready. And Bahamut deals 9000 damage, so that's a katana acquired. This dungeon is also the first dungeon in the game to properly feature defensive equipment. Like, a lot of defensive equipment. Like, outfit the whole party in defensive gear, which is not an accident. They want to lock all the best gear in the final dungeon. That does mean the real struggle of this game so far. Defense is quickly becoming not an issue. A lot of this gear is locked behind chest monsters, which does complicate things a bit. Not a lot, but a bit. Especially when I can just warp out of the dungeon. Anyway, next boss is Plague, which immediately uses Doom on the whole party, which means I need to kill it as quickly as possible. Which I do, very easily. Next boss is Dark Bahamut, which starts by killing a decent number of my party members. Unlike regular Bahamut, I can't just reflect back Mega Flare. Instead, I need to attack with all my party members while Rosa heals. Reflected flares from Rydia also deal a lot of damage, though I do need to be careful to not try to heal Rydia while she has Reflect up. Anyway, that gets me the next weapon, the Ragnarok for Cecil. And another boss fight against the Lunasaurs. These are weak to holy damage, so Cecil can tear through them basically by himself. We love dealing max damage. And with that final sequence down, it's into the final area of the game, which holds one final optional boss, Ogopogo, Leviathan clone that has slightly more elemental variety and is equally as murderable. That is the final optional boss, so let me just get my equipment all squared away and head back down to the last save to cottage up. Okay, I still have like 7 of these, so we were always going to be good. And that means final boss time. Open by using Crystal to reveal Zeromus' true form and start the fight proper. As usual, there is no reason to hold back, just unleash very strong spells, jump, and... Oh! Huh. You know, I really expected this fight to go better. Let's just try that again, shall we? Okay, real attempt here. Edge and Kane can basically do the same thing as last time, just jump and throw to the best of their abilities. Rosa, however, is no longer going to be buffing. She needs to always have a full ATB gauge, and Rydia is in charge of stopping Big Bang, kind of. Zeromus will shake before using his incredibly strong Big Bang attack, but if you hit him with Flare between that and him actually using it, he will either stop or Big Bang will deal drastically reduced damage. I don't know why. It seems intentional, but it's not actually communicated in any way in game. So Rydia sits around with a full ATB gauge until she needs to use Flare. Cecil attacks, Kane jumps, Rosa sticks to casting the best healing she can, and Edge is there mostly to throw out the occasional Elixir or Phoenix down in the event Rosa can't get a heal off in time. And between all the damage and support, eventually, Zeromus goes down. And that was Final Fantasy IV, completed without using any shops. And that was fairly interesting. Not difficult, really, but the lack of armor was a real problem for most of the run. Consumables meant a lot less than in other no-shopping runs, though, mostly because you almost always have a white mage in the party for support. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos. So if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.